Hi, this is a 6-part tutorial series to make a complete platformer game in Gamemaker. The game we're making in the series includes momentum-based movement, wall jumping, a save and load system, and everything else you need to make your own platformer game. The goal is to help you learn about Gamemaker and what you can do in this app with relatively simple code. My name is Dr. Sky, and I'm a professor of digital media arts at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. This is part 6. In this video, you will learn how to add adjustable difficulty settings and a button remapping system to your game. There are 4 essential features that I consider necessary for a ground floor approach to accessibility for game design. That is input remapping or button remapping, visual clarity, subtitles for all spoken language, and variable or adjustable difficulty. Our game really doesn't have an issue with visual clarity or with needing subtitles for spoken language because there is no spoken language, but we do need to add a button remapping system and adjustable difficulty into the game. Before we get working on that, let's do some housekeeping, a few small adjustments that'll make our life easier for the additions that are to come. First thing, from my last video, I forgot to change the sprite origin of our tutorial sign from top left to middle center, and it was making it sort of pop and throb in weird ways. So change that to middle center. Close this. In our O-Fade create event, we need to adjust the rates. O-Fade, where are we? The fade in and fade out rate. So they're just a little bit faster. Fade out from 0.02 to 0.05, and fade in rate from 0.05 to just simply 0.1. That'll make things go a little faster. Now open our our font for our buttons. Make it slightly bigger from 16. I'm changing mine to 18. And then we need to change or remove the initialize script from the creation code of the title room and move it into the mouse button if statement of O button splash. So go to the title room creation code where it says initialize, remove that, and then add it to our splash button step right here where we click on the button, add it there. Now we need to add something to the title room creation code really quick. We want to make sure that when we're moving it back and forth between things that we can always see our mouse cursor when we're in the title room. So just make sure, even though at the beginning of the game we can, if you recall that when we're in the game, we lose the sight of our mouse cursor, but when we navigate back to our title room, we want to be able to see it. So be sure to add window set cursor CR default to the creation code of the title room. So all of this will be helpful since we'll be playing around with some global variables and moving between menus really quickly. Let's run the game and make sure everything is playing exactly the same without any bugs. Splash, initialize. Let me go here. Let me just get to a checkpoint. Here we go. Okay. Everything is playing exactly the same. Actually, let me verify something really quick. Okay. I want to just move something now that I've changed the sprite origin of these question marks slightly. I just want to make sure that our character is touching this first tutorial sign right when the game begins. So we see how to move the game. You can never assume that players know how to play your game. All right, let's start on adjustable difficulty levels. In the O player object, completely remove the enemy's region. O player, step, where it says enemies. We need to change things so death is handled by the enemy objects instead. So let's just remove this enemy's region entirely. Deleted. Close that. And in the O hazard and no enemy objects in the step events, be sure to write the following. So let's add O enemy. Right at the top, you can add this. If place meeting X, Y, O player, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, with O player, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, death. So this does essentially the same thing because it even runs the code in the O player step event, and it runs our death script, but this will be important later when we adjust the difficulty settings. So let's test it out really quick. Oh, I can copy that, add it to our O hazard, add step event. Make sure that our little player guy explodes. Yep. Should be playing exactly the same. Beautiful. Now we need to make it so that if invincibility, which is going to become a global variable, is turned on, it won't make the death script run anymore. So in our initialize script, we need to declare some global variables. That's right, global dot invin for invincibility underscore enemies equals false, and global dot invin underscore hazards equals false. In the O hazard step event, wrap our place meeting death script stuff in a new if statement. So we'll write if. Let me just add the curly bracket now up there and down here, and then indent this so we can keep track. Okay. If bang global.invin hazards. So if global invin hazards is false, run this. That way, if this is ever turned to true, it'll just ignore this script. So to test it out, all you have to do is go to your initialize script and change invin hazards to true and run the game. And now we should be able to touch hazards without initiating the death script. See? Perfectly safe. Do the same thing. In fact, I'll put this to true for now. We'll change these back to false in a moment. And I will do the same for our enemy objects step. Just highlight all that and indent it. If global.invin enemies is false, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, do this code, but if it's true, ignore it. Now our enemies should also not hurt us anymore. See? Same with the hazards. Close that. Now back to the initialize, I'm just going to set these back so their default is false. All right, and now we got to duplicate our start button and rename it, and it's going to be a button to toggle invincibility on or off. So our start button, duplicate it, and I'm going to call it O button underscore inven underscore hazards. And in its create event, remove where it sets its X position, and then add off underscore text equals off, on underscore text equals on, if global.inven hazards is false, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, text equals off text, else text equals on text. There we go. And in the step event, remove the load game and fade out code entirely here. Just delete. So now when you click a button, it just makes a sound, but we're going to add other code here. And now write if, make sure you can see it, global.inven hazards is false, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, global.inven hazards equals true. Text equals on text. Else, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, global.inven hazards equals false. Text equals off text. So this will act as a toggle. If it's false, it'll switch it to true. If it's true, it'll switch it to false, and we'll adjust the text accordingly. And in our draw event, we need to change the draw text code to use the variable text instead. So I'm just going to remove everything, including the quote marks, and just write text. No, just text. And here, remove everything, just write text. To test this, let's add this to the title screen and try it a few times. And remember, you can use the escape key to return to the title menu. So let's open the title menu under instances, add our button to toggle things on and off. Toggle invincibility for hazards on and off. So here it says off because the default is off. So I'm going to delete the save, and I'm going to go to initialize, and this should kill us. Boom. Hit escape. Turn this to on. Initialize. And we're safe. Hit escape. Turn it back to off. And it damages us again. Close that. Now go back to the draw event of this button and add more stuff to the button button text so that it looks like this. Button text. We have H align, V align, draw set font. We're going to add draw set color, see aqua, draw text X plus 110 pixels, Y, comma, explain. Draw set font F buttons. Actually, we need to change this draw set font up here to F instruct. No, F defaults, not default. There we go. Draw set font F default up here. So our explanation is in the default font, and then we change the button text again. Now up here, oh, I forgot, I need to adjust other things. Our H align needs to be changed to far left. There we go. Draw set H align far left. Draw set V align far middle. Draw set font F default. Draw set color C aqua. Draw text X plus 110. Y explain. Draw set font F buttons. There we go. I'm sorry to confuse you. Draw set H align far center. So what this is going to do, our button is going to work exactly as intended, except we're adding a little explanation to the right of the button first. We need to go to the create event and add an explain variable. Explain equals invincibility to spikes, colon, line break, turn this option on if you don't, line break, want spikes to damage you, period, end quote, semicolon. All right, going back to the title screen, I'm going to reposition this button so we can see the explanation text to the right of it. So we now get this explanation text. Invincibility to spikes, line break. Turn this option on if you don't, line break, want spikes to damage you. Now, this is not going to stay on the title screen. We're going to move it to a different screen. We need to add an accessibility options screen that players can access from the title screen to turn these options on and off. And don't worry, we're going to get to creating a button for enemies as well. So let's duplicate the title screen room, right click, duplicate, and I'm going to call it r_options. Open that. And from the instances layer, remove the logo and the credits object and the two initialize and delete save buttons. And we're just left with this invincibility button right here. We need a button to get to this option screen. So let's duplicate our start button. Duplicate, and I'm going to call it O button options. And we're going to put this button on the title screen that will take us to the accessibility menu. Open that new options button step event and change the mouse button if statement. Get rid of this stuff. That starts the game. And change it so it just says fade out R options 0, 0. This will just have us fade out and transition to the options screen. And go to the draw event and change the text from initialize to something that lets players know that they're going to an options menu. Options. Options. Again, I only add this stuff here to make it look like a function. It's just part of the look of the game. You don't have to add that. And close that. Now duplicate the options button that you just created and rename it O button return to title. In the create event, remove where it assigns its X position so we can place it anywhere. And in the step event, change where the fade out will go so it'll take us back to the title screen. And in the draw event, change the text to say something like return main or return to title or just something like that. Return main. So it's time to place the buttons now. In the title room, we need to add the options button. First, we need to get rid of this invincibility button here. So delete that. And where it says O button options, drag that into the room. So I'm going to have this go a little higher. Right there. And then I'm going to close that, and I will open our options room, and our under instances, under return to title, I'm going to put that up here, but I'm going to change this grid. Just wish it was just a little bit closer. So I'm going to hold, is it the shift key? What unlocks? There we go. I'm going to hold down the controller command key. Give me just so it doesn't snap to the grid anymore, or you can just turn off the grid. I'm going to put it right there. Run the game. Make sure that you can go back and forth between these option screens. So we have our options button, takes us to the options screen, but we still have our invincibility to spikes toggle right there. Return to main menu. Back here, Takes us back and forth between these screens. And now it becomes super simple to make a button for invincibility to enemies. So just duplicate our O button invin hazards object and change this to O button invin enemies. Open that up. In the create event, change the explain variable to something that explains invincibility to enemies. Turn this option on if you don't want enemies to damage you. Also in the create event, change this part so it says if global.invin enemies is false, change it to off text. If it's true, else change it to on text. And now add it. Oh, also the step event. Got to change this so it says invin enemies, invin enemies, invin enemies. And now add it to the options room. Invin enemies, select the instances layer, change it, put it right. Is that too close? Are we gonna have room for everything? See how that looks. See if that's too close. Options. Invincibility to spikes, invincibility to enemies. Let's turn both of these on. Go to initialize. And they don't hurt us. Finally, let's add two other buttons to toggle other things that will help us adjust the difficulty of the game. Let's add a button for allowing higher jumps and then also unlimited jumps. In our initialize script, let's declare some more global variables. Global.infinite jumps equals false. Global.higher jumps equals false. Close that. Duplicate O button invin hazards object and change it to O button infinite jumps. And in our new infinite jumps button, in its create event, change the explain variable once again to something more appropriate. I'll just delete all this and rewrite it to say something like unlimited jumps, colon, line break. Turn this option on if you want to, line break, be able to jump around in the air, period. Go back here. Also in the create event, be sure to change the on and off text statement from global.invin hazards to global.infinite jumps. Thought I declared that infinite jumps. Why am I getting a caution there? Let's go to our initialize script, make sure I named it right. Infinite underscore jumps. That's what I did wrong. There we go. Underscore jumps. And also in the step event, be sure to change all of these to the new global variable, infinite underscore jumps, infinite underscore jumps, infinite underscore jumps. Now we can add this to our options room. Under instances, find O button infinite jumps and place it right there. test it out. Turn on unlimited jumps. Oh, it actually doesn't do it yet because we haven't adjusted the code yet in the player. But at least we checked it out, make sure it's working in the options room. Now we just need to go to the O player. Where are you? O player step event. Under calculate movement, we're going to find the ground jump section right here and wrap all this stuff in an if statement. So right here, write if global.infinite underscore jumps is false, open curly bracket. We want to wrap all of this right until here. Indent this. Close curly bracket. Else, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, write some new code. If key jump, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, VSP equals jump speed, semicolon. If audio is not playing, so add a bang before that. So audio is playing, SND jump, audio play, sound, SND jump, 1, sound effect. And then in the O player create event, add right under max VSP, max VSP underscore jumping equals 10, a maximum vertical jump speed. And then add or change the jump speed line right down here to be if bang global dot higher jumps because we're going to change the higher jumps thing. We're going to add the higher jumps button next. If global.higher jumps, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, jump speed equals our typical -8, else jump speed equals -10, a little taller. And we can just delete this because we've already declared the jump speed right there. So this just checks whenever it creates our player object if global.higherJumps is turned on or not. And now go to the OPlayer step event again and close this, or not close this, find the calculate vertical movement section and add or change the following items. So it'll look like this. Calculate vertical movement, var grav final equals grav, var VSP max final equals max VSP, that's all the same. And then add a new line that says var VSP underscore max underscore jumping underscore final equals max underscore VSP underscore jumping semicolon, which just imports max VSP jumping from create event. Then all this stays the same until we get to the clamp line of code and just simply change where it says negative VSP max final to VSP max jumping final, that new temporary variable that we've added. And this will make it so our max VSP jumping switches here. Maximum jumping speed will be changed to whatever it needs to be. Let's run the game and test it out. We need to add a new button also for higher jumps. But before we do that, let's just look here, see if it works for infinite jumps, unlimited jumps. We have unlimited jumps now. Options, turn that back off. Now we don't have unlimited jumps anymore. Very good. And now let's add a new button. So duplicate O button infinite jumps. Duplicate that to O button higher jumps. In the create event, add an explanation for higher jumps. Let me see if I can find in my notes what I wrote. Explain. There we go. Higher jumps. Turn this option on if you want to be able to jump higher than normal. And then here, change this to higher. And in the step event, change this to higher, change this to higher, change this to higher. And then we'll add that to the options screen as well. Higher, put it right there. So now we can test everything. So options, higher jumps, turn that on. Let's see if we have higher jumps now. We have really high float. So such high jumps that we reach our max falling speed and cause the screen shake effect to kick in. And when you have higher jumps and unlimited jumps turn it on, it gets kind of wacky. And it's actually kind of fun to play with. Especially if you have like a big open room, if you design a big open room with this. Kind of fun. All right, we've done that. And now we need to create a button remapping screen and a button to get there and back so we can have a button remapping system. So let's close this and duplicate our options room. Our options, duplicate, and rename it to r_remapping. Open that up under instances, delete all of the buttons except the button to return to the main menu, which is up here. So just delete these 4 buttons. And duplicate our invin hazards object, our button invin hazards, duplicate, and call it O_button_remapping. And in the create event, add the lines that change the text and simply replace it with text equals remap inputs, dad, quote marks. And under explain, rewrite it to button remapping : new line, change which buttons perform new line, which actions in the game. Also remove this stuff right here. And in the step event, remove this toggle because we're just going to a different room. Just replace it with fade out R remapping 0, 0. Put this remapping button in our options room under instances. So we'll go to the options room, and then if you want to remap buttons, you can click on this button here. We got to make room for it though. So under our tiles, I'm going to right click there, right click there. So I'm going to remove these corners entirely just to give us some more room. Back to instances, move it there, move that there. That should work. Let's see if it looks okay in our options room. Remap inputs down here. Go there, takes us to our button remapping screen. All right, so we need to add buttons to remap the inputs in our remapping screen. We're going to first go to our initialize script and add a bunch of global variables here. First, global.keyRight equals vkRight. Global.keyLeft equals vkLeft. Global.keyJump equals vkup. Global.keyAttack equals vkspace. Global.keyMenu equals vkEscape. And global.detecting_input equals false. So bunch of new global variables. Close that. In the OPlayer step event, we need to go to the player inputs region and change it so that it no longer says these, but the global variables. So instead of vkleft here, replace it to global.key_left and do the same thing with all of these. Let's do a little copying and pasting. Key right, key jump again, key attack, and then close or minimize this region and go to the game control region. And where it says VK escape, change that to global.keyMenu. Test it out and you should be able to move your character normally. So everything should work just the same as before. Yep. Attack, move, jump, escape, takes it. So everything's working the same, but now by changing it to global variables, we're able to manipulate them. And we want to make some buttons that use a text string to show the player which keys are being used to control the game. And certain keys on the keyboard are given a numerical code, and that is how Gamemaker reads inputs like vkwrite or vkescape. Letters on the keyboard, though, are easy to convert into a string to put on an in-game button. But we need a script to convert these other keys like vkup or vkspace or vkescape into a string name. So we are going to create a new script and call it keycheck. In the project files that I include with these videos, locate the text file, if I can find it. There should be a text file called script keycheck. Just open that up, which I have like right here. And I have everything how it needs to be. Oh, except I need to change that. And if you can just literally copy and paste this entire thing and replace all of this. You can even like make this script completely empty, paste it, scroll up, just make sure your function name right here, keycheck, matches the name of your script over to the right in the asset library. And this should convert all the VK key names to strings that we can use for our buttons. All right, so now let's make the buttons that will remap our controls by changing the global .key variables we just created. Duplicate our O button infinite jumps button and name it O button O underscore button underscore key underscore right. Open that up, and in the create event, right here, right if detecting, oh, not that if, sorry. We need to declare the variables first. Detecting underscore input equals false, semicolon. When true, game will look for next key press. Detect underscore text equals string press any key. Text equals key check global dot key right. So our key check string right here that we're going to use, and it's going to convert whatever we assign to our key right global variable, and it's going to turn that into a string that will display that name of that key as text. And then our explain variable is right here. We can remove all this off text, on text, and the explain down here. Just delete all that and write a new explain variable that says move right, colon, new line, moves your character to the right, semicolon. And we don't need this toggle anymore, so delete that. And in the step event, change the mouse button if statement, remove all of this entirely once again, and write if detecting input is false and global dot detecting input is false. Open curly bracket, close curly bracket. Global dot detecting input equals true and detecting input equals true. So what this does is that it checks to see if our global detecting input variable is false, and also our local instance variable, or our object, our object variable detecting input is also false. If so, it toggles this to true, and then changes this local variable also to true. This is going to be important in a second, as you're going to see under some text or some code that we're going to write right here. Add a new comment to create a section. We're going to call it button remap. If detecting input, which is our instance variable, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, hover equals true, text equals detect underscore text. If keyboard underscore key does not equal 0, meaning keyboard key is just anything. So when detecting input is true, this is just going to stay true until the player touches any of the keys. And when it does, it's going to run this code. Audio, play, sound, SND, button, hover, sound. Priority 1, false. Global dot key right equals keyboard key. Keyboard key is a cool thing. It just checks the most recently pressed keyboard key and gives it to your game. Update key variable. Text equals key check. That's script. Global dot key right. Update button text. Global dot detecting input equals false. let other remapping happen. And then detecting input equals false. End this button's detection. So now you can see why we have these two different detecting input variables, because when the global detecting input is engaged, all the other remapping buttons need to turn off so that we're not allowed to remap more than one button at a time. So that's why we have this global variable as well as an object variable here that we use. All right, let's close that. First, I want to go to this create event, make sure all that's good. Yeah, I think so. We're going to place this button in our remapping room. So open our remapping room and find your O button key right and put it in here. Let me change the grid. Oh, this is the player layer. Forget that. Instances layer. There we go. Put it right here. So we go to options. We go to remap inputs. It says right arrow, move right, moves your character to the right. If I click that, it says press any key. And say I letter D. I hit the D key. I click it and I do the, I don't know, shift key. Click it or make it the number 3 button. I'm going to change it to D for now. If I return to main and initialize, my right arrow key no longer moves my character, but the D key does. So that works. If I hit escape, option, remap inputs, I can change this back to right arrow. And the right arrow is now working again. So now you have a working remapping button. We can either make a parent object for these to reduce the amount of copying, pasting, and duplicating. But since we only have 5 buttons, we can just duplicate these objects rather quickly and edit them. So let's duplicate this key right button 4 times and name them respectively O button key left. Duplicate that. O button key jump. Duplicate that. O button key attack. Duplicate that. O button key menu. And in their create events, update the text line and write new explanations. So we're going to start with key attack because it's up at the top. Open the create event where it says text key check. Change this from key right to key attack. Change the explanation to attack uses a weapon to attack enemies. And then in the step event, update the button remap section with the appropriate keys. So we're doing the attack key. So change this to key attack. Change this to key attack. And we have to do this to all of our other buttons. So I'm going to try to go as quickly as I can. Key jump. Change this to jump. Makes your character jump in the air. Change this from global.keyWrite to global.keyJump. Step event. Change this to key jump. Change this to key jump. Key left. Create. Key left. New explanation. Moves your character to the left. Step event. Key left. Key left. Menu. Key menu. Explanation. Menu. Return to the title menu. Step. key menu, key menu. And that is it. So let's go to our remapping room under instances and add the other keys. We already have our key right button right there. So let's add key left right underneath it. Then key jump makes sense. Then key attack makes sense. Then key menu makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go to our tiles here. Remove these corners. Just right after you have it selected under auto tile, you can just right click to remove things. Let's go to instances, assets. We can actually give ourselves some more room there. That looks pretty good. Let's check it out. Oh, I have an issue down here with compile errors with our key jump button. Okay. Key jump step event. Jump makes your character jump in the air. Key underscore jump step. Oh, there's an error. Oh, I accidentally deleted a parentheses. Run the game now. Options, remap inputs, right arrow, left arrow, up arrow. Spacebar, escape. Yep, that's all right. So let's remap these things. Let's change right arrow to D. Oh, I need to change something on our left arrow key. Sorry, one more thing. Key left, create event. Need to change this from move right to move left. There we go. Little bugs and fixes you have to do. Remap inputs, move right, move left, jump, character jump in the air. Oh, that has a little cutoff there. So that needs to be changed. Spacebar. That looks pretty good. Let's change this. D, A, W. Leave the attack the spacebar menu. Let's change the menu to our enter key. Alright, so I'm now using WASD as my movement controls, and if I hit the enter key, it takes us back. So everything's working. The only thing that I don't like is that how the last little bit of my explanation just floods over to this little tile. So our button remapping room, I think I'm just going to remove the tile layer entirely. I think I just need to. All right, so let's change our return button from the remapping room so it just returns us to the options menu. So let's close this. In our remapping room under instances, this return to title button, just click that and remove it and close that. And our return to title button here, duplicate that and change it O button return to options. Open O button return to options. And in the draw event, change draw text to something like back options, back options. And in the step event, in the mouse button if statement, change it from fade out our title to our options. There we go. We actually need to add a little bit more code here. I forgot. So if we're currently detecting an input, we need to stop the detecting process before we leave the remapping room. So I will just add a comment here that says stop detecting inputs before leaving this menu. If global dot detecting input is true, global dot detecting input equals false. Then take us to the options room. Place this new button in our remapping room. Return to options under instances. Return to options we'll put up here. And let's make sure that's all working. One thing we need to test is click remap inputs. Click one of these where it's detecting inputs, where it says press any key, and then click back options and it should turn that off. That is not working. Did I put the right? Hold on, just want to make sure. Return to options, step. Global dot detecting input is true. Change it to false. I think that's okay. I think it's okay. As long as that clears out by the time we leave, even if we can quickly remap it, that is totally fine. Doesn't matter. That's fine. As long as you press one of these, and then when you hit back and go back, that's cleared out, then it's working. Finally here, let's make it so the game remembers and saves the player's accessibility options preferences, not just with button remapping, but with the other options as well, and it'll go right into our save and load system. Close that, go to our save game script, save game, and we got to add a lot of stuff. So let's first change this from autosave and just call these sections progress. Progress. So these are the global variables associated with progressing in the game. And let's write real difficulty higher jumps, comma, global dot higher underscore jumps. Okay, for our other difficulty things, I'm just going to copy and paste a little bit. Difficulty, let's change the next one, call it infinite jumps. Infinite jumps. Change the next one to invin underscore enemies. Invin underscore enemies. Invin underscore hazards. Global dot invin hazards. Next one, any right real remapping attack global dot key underscore attack. Now let's do some copying and pasting again. Change this to jump, left, right, menu. Whew. Any close. All right, so progress, difficulty, and then 5 remapping things. Close that. Now open our load game script. And we're going to relabel autosave over to progress like we did in the other one. Progress. Progress. And that'll stay basically the same, but now we need to uh, go to our initialize script, and it's going to make things a little easier. Open our initialize script and do some copying, starting with our difficulty options here. Copy those, and then go up here and paste them in. And instead of false, we're going to write any read real difficulty section, comma, invin enemies. Oh, that needs to be in quote marks. Invin enemies, comma, and a default load of false. And I'm going to copy this, paste it 3 times here, and change this to invin hazards, infinite jumps. Actually, I didn't add a, don't believe I added an underscore there in our save game script. Let me check. Gotta just make sure that these, yep, higher jumps and infinite jumps, I didn't add an underscore. So remove that. Infinite jumps and higher jumps. Next is our global input keys. So copy that. Go over here, indent them in, and write any read real remapping, comma, write, comma, vk write will be our default. Nothing is there. And then copy, paste, 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 paste. And we don't need the detecting input global variable there. So change this to left, change this to left, change this to jump, change this to jump. No, space, right? No, up. Up is our jump key. Change this to attack, change this to space, change this to menu, change this to escape. All right, now we want to rearrange where the script happens since we want to load up the preferences before the player looks at the options menu. Let's close these scripts. So first, remove the fade out script from the load game script. So open up load game, and where it says fade out, remove that entirely. Just delete it. Close that. In the O button start object in the step event, remove the load game if statement entirely. Just have it fade out in the mouse button if statement. So let's delete all of this entirely. So it'll just play the sound and then fade out. Global dot checkpoint room, global dot checkpoint x, global dot checkpoint y. Also, go to the death script and add a fade out after the load game thing, because we removed the fade out after in the load game script, so we have to add it here. Fade out, global dot checkpoint room, global dot checkpoint x, global dot checkpoint y. Make sure those errors go away. They do. Now we'll have the load game script run right after the initialize script runs in the splash button step event. So go to O button splash step event. We've added this initialize script to there before it fades out. We're going to add if file exists, save.sav, double close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, load game. Now we need to add our save game script to the two buttons that return from their setting options. So in the O button return to options step event, right before the fade out script, add save game. Same thing in the O button return to title step event. Right before it fades out, write save game. All right, let's test it out, make sure everything's working and that it will remember our preferences. There's no save game. All right, so if we go, let's turn on all of these, go to remap inputs, change all of them. So if I go back, we have a saved file now. So if I close the game and open it up again, we have that save file that has remembered all of our options because it's saving the game. Initialize. And nothing can really hurt us. Then we have all these options turned on. If I hit this, if I go to menu, change this options. Good. I'm just doing all this testing to make sure that I didn't mess up anything. Go to a checkpoint, die, go to menu. Yep, everything is working. Okay, so the last thing we want to do here, since we've done all this work with remapping, is let's make it so the tutorial signs in our levels use the correct keys when teaching the player how to move and jump and attack and everything, which is relatively easy to implement. Open our level 1 and find a tutorial sign that teaches a key input, like this says arrow keys, right? So open that instance, creation code where it says text, to use arrows to move. Simply change it to text, key check, that wonderful script we have, global.key right plus open quotes space key to move right. I close that. Since we have the D letter on the keyboard being our to move right, it should say that over here. D key to move right. Now, if we go back here under options, remap inputs, and change this back to defaults, this should say, oh, right arrow key. Right arrow key to move right. Very good. So what does this one say? This one says, don't touch bad things. That's fine. But we can also add another sign here. Right here. Creation code. Text equals key check global dot key jump plus open quotes space key to jump. So this will check what our jump key should be. Initialize. You know what? Delete the save. It says up arrow key to jump. If I go here and change that, jump key to be the letter W, W key to jump. And you can do this with all of your bikes. And ladies and gentlemen and everyone, that is the basic platformer tutorial. You know how to move between rooms, you know how to have a full accessibility menu, a save load system. Feel free to reach out to me via email or through my website, skylarl.net, if you have questions or suggestions of what other tutorials you'd like to see. But it has been a pleasure to work with you. Thank you very much for your time.